Welcome to another episode of Mission Matters here at Salem First Presbyterian Church. I'm Rob Thrasher, Minister of Discipleship and Mission. On today's episode, our featured guest is Imani Hall with Salem Leadership Foundation right here in Salem, Oregon. Let's get to it. Welcome, Imani. We're glad to have you with us today. Well, how about we start by having you tell us a little bit about what your role is at Salem Leadership Foundation and how you're serving the community of Salem.
Yeah, so thank you, Rob, for having me for this interview. I appreciate you and I appreciate your partnership and all that Salem First Presbyterian is doing and has been doing for years, but is also doing now with the acuteness of the stressors that we're all experiencing in this moment. But as you said, yes, I work for the Salem Leadership Foundation. I'm a North Salem lightning rod. And so the Salem Leadership Foundation, we help the relationship between people of faith and people of goodwill. And so working with churches, schools, nonprofits, and neighbors. And for me, particularly within the North High School feeder area. And so I've been serving in that capacity for the last 2 3/4 years or so. And it's been really beautiful service. Love the North High School feeder area. I was just at a meeting with some folks from Young Life, and so it's just beautiful to see the ways in which North Salem specifically, but I think Salem, Kaiser, and Marion County as a whole continues to come together and serve one another in these times.
Outstanding. Thank you for the work you do. My next question that I have for you is a personal one. I'm curious to know how you and your loved ones are doing during this extraordinary time of pandemic and civil unrest. You just tell us a little, how are you doing?
Yeah. I think yesterday was a good day. The day before that was a good day. And so I think with what's happening locally, what's happening nationally, what's happening to our world, I think counting the blessings. I'm finding myself counting the blessings. And so I've been really thankful for the littlest of things. Like yesterday, I was on a little bit of a walk and just being able to smell some flowers, and that was a really grounding, healing moment for me. And so I think that with maybe with the unveiling of violence, with the unveiling of vulnerability and local, national, and international injustices, both when it comes to police brutality, but also when it comes to access and education, and the ways in which folks of color or folks who are in poverty, particularly have felt the pandemic a lot more acutely, or a lot more in a much more overbearing sense, I think, than many other folks in the world. I think that this time is a time of potentially deeper seeing, and seeing the violence of the ways in which some of the systems that America and other countries have set up are doing violence to people, particularly folks who are most vulnerable. Yeah. But then within that kind of macabre reality, still being able to smell flowers, or to be at a march or a rally and hear young people scream love, and or go to a march or a rally and see folks of color stand on the ground of places that used to be places of deep violence, and be able to show the unity and the redemption that's happening to land and also to people. I think that's been like a saving grace in these times.
So good to hear the hope in your words, even in the midst of these very stressful times.
Yeah.
So in more specifics, could you tell us a little bit more about how these cultural experiences, these stressors within our society, have been affecting the work you do with Salem Leadership Foundation?
Yeah. And so I think that we at SLF, so Salem Leadership Foundation is I guess the full name of SLF, but we also sometimes say the F stands for flexible. And so it's we also are constantly trying to adjust. And so we adjust for the needs of our city. And so as we see that folks in our city are in need of hope, we thankfully were able to create a video that showed signs of hope for one of our fundraisers, Fancy Friday, a couple of weeks ago. We've been able to come alongside and support churches and pastors as they figure out how to pastor in a pandemic. we've been able to help folks get together for building masks, particularly around COVID locally. And that, I guess, was more so around the acuteness of the beginning and the endurance of the pandemic, and then now socially. A coworker of mine, DJ Vincent, and you and I have been out a couple times attending the protest downtown, listening to young people, gathering folks, and trying to have people, pastors pastors and ministry leaders within the Salem Kaiser area get together and show up and care for and counsel and serve just folks in our city. And so there's been a lot of adjustment and flexibility in the last couple of weeks for us as a team.
Are there as sort of a follow-up question, are there any experiences that you want to highlight over the last week that have sort of been standout moments for you as we have been serving in this capacity downtown at these rallies and protests?
I think for me, there are a couple of things that come to mind. But as I think about downtown, the first thing that comes to mind is there was a gathering, a rally on last Saturday. So Saturday, I want to say it was maybe June 6th, I think June 6th, or maybe June 7th. I can't remember which one. June 7th? I'm not sure. A couple days ago, whatever the Saturday before this one.
It was the 6th. You were
6th, yeah, June 6th, yeah, June 6th. There were some native Aztec folks there, and as they were, I guess from my own perspective, I don't know the language that they would use to describe it, but as they were doing a dance and blessing essentially the space and the gathering, and also the land, it made me think of just the redemption that's happening. I think that I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I'm from the Northeast. So I'm from Philadelphia, and I have family in Florida, and so I've taken the trip, driven the trip from Philadelphia to particularly Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a couple times. And for me as a Black man, I always feel eerie traveling around the Deep South, and particularly seeing the trees in the Deep South, like this. Just understanding the history there, like the land feels imbued or soaked in violence. And as I was talking to my friend yesterday, and as I right now remember the native Aztec folks that were blessing the land and blessing the space on June 6th at the rally, it just made me think of the redemption of that violence, like having just people come together and speak healing and speak unity and speak love and speak blessing over places that have been violent. Like in Salem's history, there have been lynchings in this town, there have been murders in this town, and in the surrounding region. And so I think that we can't, and also like this land is not, it's not like this land originally belonged to Native folks, and so, and yet like I think that oftentimes the like original violences or the original sins of America can often get overlooked. But I think that this season of protest and call for action and pleas for mercy are redeeming the histories and the violences that have happened in this country for generations.
So good. Thanks for sharing that, sharing your heart there. My last question for our time together is a spiritual one. I'm curious to know, what is it that you're sensing that God has been speaking to you during these unique times in your life personally, as well as in our world?
Yeah, I think a couple things. It's like probably a couple things. I think personally rest. I think that I think as I look in scripture and see the ways in which God talks about rest, the ways in which Jesus goes away and spends time with the Father in the mornings before coming back to people, the times that Jesus and his disciples are out in the lonely places or the wilderness places. It just makes me think about constantly like reorienting and recentering ourselves on the Father, on God, on Jesus, on Holy Spirit, and what is Holy Trinity saying in these moments and these times. And so I think for me, constantly remembering to rest, and that, like no one person presently on the earth, I guess, in a way, can save the world, but it's all of us together. But we need to work from rest as we try to do that. If we constantly work out of exhaustion or from an empty tank, it won't be, I just think it won't be fruitful. So I think rest is very important.
Good word. Good word. Thank you so much for your time today, Imani. And may you know some deep rest this week as you continue to serve our city. And we are grateful as a congregation to be in partnership with Salem Leadership Foundation, and you specifically. You are our lightning rod, since we are in the downtown north area with the feeder schools of Parish and North. So look forward to more and better work alongside you and Salem Leadership Foundation. So how can we as a congregation be praying for you guys?
Well, I also, excuse me, I'd like to say just thank you. Thank you, Rob, for your friendship. Thank you for your consistency. You've constantly been at the can table. You've constantly been like serving at Salem First Presbyterian, but also been intentional about building a relationship with Salem First Pres and other nonprofits in the area. I think of Family Promise and how you all host families there. I think of opening yourselves up as a warming center. And I know this past year there were like a lot of uncertainty around that, but you all like stepped up to the table and continued to serve. And so I'm just thank you for your posture for the city. And I also, it reminds me, there have been a couple of times I also served with Young Life, and Salem First Pres has been the host site for like an all-city wildlife event for the past couple of years. And so just thank you for opening up your building. You're a church being the church. Like it's not, and I don't mean that in like a condescending way to other congregations, but I just appreciate our partnership and our friendship and the ways in which you all serve. And so thank you. And also thank you to your congregation for just continuing to be outward.
Fantastic. So I like to call it, we are a community center that happens to have a church that meets in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. So how can we be praying for Salem Leadership Foundation and for you the days ahead?
Thank you. I think for SLF, I think prayers for wisdom, like as we seek to serve, as we seek to love our city and her most vulnerable, as we seek to be a center set table and a center set voice in all or as many conflicts as we can be. I think prayers for wisdom, prayers for deep listening and for deep understanding, and for also prayers for courage, that we may speak like truth in a loving and gracious way to all folks who are able to speak truth to. And so, so prayers for that would be much appreciated. For myself, just rest. I think just prayers for engaging in healthy rhythms. I think that I can kind of swing all over the place a lot. And so I think rhythms really help me to be centered, to hear from Holy Trinity, and to operate out of rest. And so I think prayers for that would be much appreciated.
Fantastic. You can count on it, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for being with us today, Imani.
Yeah, glad to do it. Thanks, man.